What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. It's starting 11 prediction time for tomorrow's game at home against Ross County. Back to league duty after that battle during the week against Club Brugge. I suppose just to reflect on the game, having had the chance to see it back, I think it was obviously very difficult. I don't think collectively and individually we played that well on the night. Bruges obviously had a great start to the game. They dictated it, they controlled it. They were good on the ball. Their shape when we had the ball was very good. It didn't allow us any space to build the game. And I think, as Brendan Rodgers said afterwards, our pressing wasn't quite there. It even felt like that in the stadium in the first half, where if Kuhn was going to close down the fullback, there wasn't any contact at the end of it. We just couldn't get close enough. We couldn't really affect Bruges enough in that first half. I think you can see how well disciplined and how well coached they are. I actually think Hans, who I had on in the preview, nailed it in terms of them not being as open as Leipzig. I think styles, we hear the phrase in boxing all the time that styles make fights. I think styles make football matches. Leipzig came and played very differently to how Bruges did. They have a different set of qualities. And as I say, individually and collectively, we just weren't quite at the level we know we can be, going back to that Leipzig game. And I think they were much a better team in the first half. Second half, we did change it. We got back into it. We got much more control. We finished the game with 62% possession. But we didn't really create too many clear-cut openings either. Maida obviously scores a brilliant goal, which gets us level, but there wasn't really a gilt-edged chance. We couldn't really carve anything out that you could look at it and go, do you know what, we should have won the game. Obviously, the goal we conceded is an absolute freak, but I think that was the spell in the game where Bruges were really on top. And we obviously, the shape's wrong, and Kuhn plays Carter Vickers into trouble, and then Carter Vickers panics without knowing where Schmeichel is. And it's just a bit of a freak accident of a goal. But to be fair, Bruges were on top at that moment, and they might have otherwise scored themselves. I think we come out of it, got to be really happy with a point. Lots of people have said it, the manager included. That's a game that we've watched in previous seasons in this competition and in other competitions. The Europa League with Copenhagen, even similar with Bodo Glimt as well. He'll back in the Champions League games like Anderlecht and Mönchengladbach, which the manager referenced today. Tough games against good opposition in Europe where they make it really difficult for you and you can't get anything out of the game, and you let it get away from you. I think the players deserve credit for getting a point. It's a good point because it brings us on 8 in the campaign, but just in terms of as a symbol of progress at this level, you can see we've obviously got better given how these first 5 games have gone this season, compared to the previous 2 in this competition. But to get something out of a game like that shows you that even when we're not at our best, we've found a way to navigate it. We've found a way not to lose it, and that's really important. That's 4 Champions League home games without defeat now, and the more games we can add to that, the better. We want to get it back to being a place that teams don't like to come. That if you look at the recent record, there's not been a lot of defeats, and I think that's the kind of thing we can start to move towards if we can get through these more difficult games and make sure that we don't lose them. That's what will build up the home record. That's what will make it a bit of a fortress again. But I think in the grand scheme of things, we've got to be very happy with a point, given how the game played out. It was a tough one, and Bruges were very well organised. They played very well. They played similarly to how I saw them play in the San Siro, and I knew they were a good team, and they proved that on Wednesday. So I think when all said and done, we'll take our point and we'll move on to Zagreb in a couple of weeks' time. Lots to play for, still in a brilliant position to make the playoff, with big games to come. So a difficult night, but a result that we're ultimately got to be happy with, I think. And we come back to league duty tomorrow against Ross County, who sit 8th in the league. They've had 2 wins for their last 5 games, obviously at home, one against Kilmarnock and one against Motherwell last weekend, both 2-1 victories. Their home form is obviously very good. Their away form really, really poor. For us, it's just about maintaining the intensity. There's no doubt the manager's going to make a lot of changes to the lineup. We've seen it time and time again already this season. After these big Champions League games, there's been at least 3 changes, more often than not, sometimes 5 or 6. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does tomorrow, because I think there was some players towards the end of the game on Wednesday who did look really tired. And as I say, we didn't really quite get the best level out of anyone, partly obviously down to us and the individuals themselves, but also because of how well Bruges played on the night. So let's have a look then at how the Celtic team might look tomorrow. Casper will obviously be in goals. Having watched the goal back that we did concede, he's come right to his near post to give Kuhn the option to give the ball back to him. Or if Kuhn's going to try and find Johnston again, then he's in position to get the ball for Johnston. But when Kuhn goes into Carter Vickers and Carter Vickers doesn't look, Casper's nowhere near it. I don't think he can really take any blame for that. I think that the problem was the shape and the positioning of the outfield players, the defenders. Kuhn, I think Carter Vickers and Johnson could be in better positions. Bruges were obviously pressing his man for man all over the pitch, and they were really good at it. And it meant that as soon as Kuhn laid the ball back into Carter Vickers, somebody had sprung on top of him, and he panicked. So I think Schmeichel, yes, it looks quite extreme because he's over this side, but he's trying to give Kuhn an option when the rest of the team's not in a good position. So a really awkward goal to lose. He obviously showed good leadership to get everybody together after that in the middle of the pitch. And we did kind of settle down after that. I'm not saying it was because Casper got everybody together. I think sometimes that happens with the natural momentum of a game when a team have been on top and then they get a goal. Sometimes that just brings a calmness, and it sort of clears everything out, and then you can try and get a foot on the ball and calm everything down. But when they're in the middle of the momentum, it's really difficult to try and sway it. So Schmeichel will be in goals. Back four, I'm going Johnston, Carter Vickers to keep his place. I think Scales might come in for Trusty, and Vi, I think, will replace Taylor. First of all, Scales coming in for Trusty. Trusty was very good the other night. I thought he defended very well. I thought he was decent in there. I thought he put in a lot of good tackles. There was some really good recovery tackles when Bruges had space in the first half, down the channels, down the right hand side. With Jutgla running into the wide areas. He had a couple of really good defensive challenges. I think he stood up well all night, Austin Trusty, but I think maybe because he was away with the US last week on international duty, he might come out. Scales will come back in. I think Brendan Rodgers will want to keep Scales engaged as well because he has performed so well over a period of time. I don't think he'll want Scales to feel like he's absolutely bombed out now and he can't get back in the team. So I think that's one change we might see tomorrow. And Vi at left back, great impact on the game the other night. A lot of people crying out for him to start. I don't think Taylor has been even at his best level in the last two games, whether that be at Tynecastle or during the week against Bruges. Good news on Alex Vi, by the looks of things, it's confirmed that we are going to keep him until the end of the season. Who knows if there was anything in that rumour that Barcelona were going to bring him back in January. It just came out of nowhere that morning that we played Leipzig. It's good to have that confirmed going into the January window. I think he's a good player. I think he's growing. I think depending on how the rest of the season plays out, it might be one that we try and speak to Barcelona about getting back on a permanent basis if they're willing to let him go. But I think the back four will have maybe one or two changes in it tomorrow. Just before I go any further, by the way, that's me up to 7 starting 11s correct this season. I've got the last two in a row. Actually meant to take my praise the last time for the Bruges starting 11 because I got it right at Tynecastle. There was no changes on Wednesday. I got it right again, but there definitely will be changes tomorrow, which means it's even more difficult to get this one right. In midfield, I think McGregor will keep his place. Some people might expect Luke McCowan to come in and start. We could see him, well, it's replacing McGregor or not, we could definitely see him start the game. I think he's a really good option for us in these domestic games. I don't think McGregor had his best night the other night, but again, I think that's because the way Bruges set up to stop us playing through McGregor and stop him being at the heart of everything. Hans Van Aken was following him like a shadow for most of the game, and he really struggled to impact it and struggled to dictate it the way that he can do in these games. But I'm just going to go with him starting. I'm going to go with Paulo Bernardo to come in. He's obviously the player that everybody's talking about, given the performances from Engels recently. I think again he helped us on Wednesday night. He always brings a good intensity into the game. He's obviously got bags of quality technically as well. He had a really good chance on the edge of the box where he does well to just drop the shoulder, cut back inside. He gets himself a yard to get a shot away. But I think he'll be disappointed with the execution because he should have got it on target and worked the goalkeeper. But overall, he had a really good impact in the game for us. Helped us change momentum, helped us take control of that second half. But I'm going to go Arne Engels beside him. I think Hatate might be the one that drops out of midfield. Again, it's a stab in the dark, really. It's a total guess. Who knows what Brendan Rodgers is going to do tomorrow? But I just think with Engels, the manager's going to persist. I think obviously he's not performing how we would hope just now. I think the game passed him by on Wednesday again. I think off the ball, he obviously really struggled with the bruise shape and the defensive running that he had to do. But then on the ball as well, that man marking system, how they were pressing us, just really struggled to do anything. He struggled to influence the game at all. And as I say, it totally passed him by. I think he might keep his place though. Let us know in the comments. I'm sure a lot of you would like to see a midfield of McCowan, Bernardo, Hatate, something like that. I've just went with those three. Who knows? You can let me know your three in the comments below. Right hand side, I'm sticking with Nicholas Kuhn. I think he could have done better at the goal. I think having watched it back again, I was putting all the blame on Carter Vickers. I think obviously he takes a lion's share of the blame for it, but I think Kuhn could maybe try and buy a foul. He could maybe try and turn out. Obviously, he's got the Kuiper right up his backside because of the way Bruges were pressing and he's under pressure. But if you take it in and you protect it, you can maybe buy a foul. You can maybe try and drop the shoulder and go the other side of him. He could have done something like that because he does play him into trouble. And then I think it's even De Kuiper who leaves Kuhn as soon as he passes it to close down Carter Vickers, and that causes, as I say, the big man to panic. But he'll keep his place. I'm going Forrest on the left-hand side. I think Dyson Maeda might come out as well. Brilliant goal the other night. Absolutely brilliant goal out of nothing. He'd actually, in the same passage of play about 20 seconds earlier, he just dwelt on the ball. Vai had made a driving overlap and run, and he didn't give him it. He sort of came back inside with it and stalled on the ball for a few seconds. And a lot of the crowd were sort of giving him stick for it. And then, as I say, 10-15 seconds later, he's got the ball in that sort of inside left position, and he's cut back inside and unleashed that shot. He slips as he hits it, but it's a brilliant finish in the far corner past Mignolet. I just thought, again, he did really tire in the game, and I think between him and Hatate, who were away on the other side of the world with Japan last week, Brendan Rodgers might see this as a game where he can put them on the bench and only use them if they're needed at some point in the game. I'm sticking with Kyogo through the middle. Adamida could well get a start. I think that's at least 4 or 5 changes, maybe 6 I've gone with, so I didn't want to go 7, 8 or 9. I don't think there'll be anywhere near that many. I would expect at least 3 or 4. Who knows where they'll be across the pitch, but I'm just going to stick with Kyogo. He did do the pre-match press today though. If you think that's anything to go by, then he might well get the nod from the start tomorrow. And Kyogo was away with Japan as well, so maybe you could say it's flawed logic to put him in on the basis that I think he might leave Maeda and Hatate out. But I've just went with Kyogo. That's 11 I'm guessing the manager will go with tomorrow. Who knows? I don't think I'll get this one right, but you can let me know who you think will start in the comments below. And as always, we'll be back with you tomorrow with full-time reaction outside the stadium, and we'll be back at Malone's Bar for the post-match pint as well. So join us for all of the full-time content, and wherever you're watching the game tomorrow, enjoy it. We'll see you then. Cheers.